Hi, Sam, Ellie, and Charlotte. This is Chapter 7 in our book, The Sasquatch Escape. This chapter is titled Pearl's Promise. "I'm going to take a nap," Grandpa Abe announced as he patted his belly. He grabbed his cane and shuffled across the crumb-coated kitchen floor. Ben had eaten a bologna sandwich and a pickle for lunch, but he didn't remember chewing or tasting them. He'd been thinking about the baby dragon that was lying on his bed. How long could it survive without help? The red-haired man with the dragon's milk recipe had said he worked at the old button factory. A person with a dragon's milk recipe might be a person who knows a thing or two about dragons. "Grandpa?" Grandpa Abe settled on the patched couch. He stretched out his long, skinny legs and rested his head on a moth-nibbled pillow. "Can I go for a walk?" "Can you go for a walk?" "Of course you can go for a walk." "Thanks." Back home, Ben wasn't allowed to go on walks alone. Too much traffic, too many strangers. Plus, everything was so spread out in Los Angeles, it could take an hour just to get to the mall. But if Ben stood on Main Street in Buttonville, he could see from one end of town to the other. There's no way he would get lost. As Ben added his lunch plate to the pile in the sink, he remembered that he'd promised his mother to help with the chores. "I'll wash these when I get back," he said. "Okay by me," Grandpa Abe said as he closed his eyes. "I'll be heading to the senior center later. There's an extra key to the house under the welcome mat, just in case I'm not here when you get back." He rolled onto his side. "Okay." Ben found a cookie tin on the kitchen counter. He shook out the crumbs, then folded sheets of paper towels inside. After grabbing a rusty spatula, he hurried into his room. The creature lay on the quilt, its eyes still closed. Ben slid the spatula under the creature, gently lifted it, and set it on the bed of paper towels. For a moment, he worried about the flammability of the paper, but no sparks shot out of the creature's snout. "Don't be scared," he whispered. He put the lid on the tin, then carried it into the living room. Snores streamed out of Grandpa Abe's half-open mouth. Barnaby perched on Grandpa's chest, leisurely cleaning his front paws. He seemed to have forgotten about the wounded creature as Ben tiptoed past. He seemed to have forgotten about the wounded creature he'd abandoned on Ben's bed, and he paid no attention as Ben tiptoed past and out the front door. Ben glanced back just to make sure his bedroom door was closed tight. Gripping the cookie tin, Ben set off down the sidewalk. Town Hall loomed in the distance, guiding the way back to Main Street. In just a few minutes, Ben stood in front of the dollar store. He barely knew Pearl Petal, but he needed her help. Even though Grandpa Abe had called Pearl a troublemaker, Ben felt he could trust her. After all, they'd both seen the giant bird, and she had mouthed the word dragon. She'd told him that the giant bird lived on the roof of the old button factory, and she'd said she was going to investigate. If she took him to the factory, maybe they'd find the red-haired man who'd said he worked there. Ben hoped she hadn't left already. The dollar store's front window was stacked with all sorts of stuff you could buy for $1. Baskets, beach balls, bags of tortilla chips, and brooms. Voices drifted from the open window above the store. Glasses and silverware clinked. "Hello," Ben called. A head of blonde hair poked out of the window. "Hey, it's you." Pearl looked down at him. "What's that you're carrying?" Ben put the cookie tin behind his back. "Are you still going to the old button factory to find that bird?" "Yeah, as soon as I finish lunch," she smiled. "You want to go with me?" "Yes, because—" Ben tapped his feet, then looked around. The sidewalk was empty. The nearest pair of ears belonged to a woman who was walking her dog across the street. "I found something," he told Pearl. Pearl disappeared. A few moments later, the open sign rattled as she burst out the front door. "What did you find?" she asked, her eyes wide with expectation. A checkered napkin was tucked into her t-shirt. Ben narrowed his eyes. "You have to promise not to tell anyone." "Yeah, okay, I promise," she said, holding up her hand as if swearing an oath. because if you tell your mom or dad, they might take it away. I said, I promise. I always keep my promises. Ben lowered his voice. Then he slowly slid the tin out from behind his back. Remember how you said that bird looked like a dragon? Pearl nodded. Her eyes got so big they looked like they might pop right off her face. What did you find? Very carefully, so as not to startle the creature, Ben pulled off the lid. Is that a toy? Pearl asked as she leaned closer. Then she inhaled so long and hard that if any bugs had been flying around, they surely would have been sucked into her mouth right between the big gap in her teeth. Whoa, it's breathing! She reached out to touch the creature, but Ben pulled the tin away. Be careful. It shoots fire, he explained. Grandpa's cat caught it. Its wing is torn. Ben, do you know what you found? Pearl's green eyes sparkled as if they'd been dipped in glitter. Do you? Ben swallowed hard. When he spoke, his voice was a bit shaky. I think it's a baby dragon. It sure is, Pearl smiled. Do you think it belongs to the big dragon? Maybe. Then we have to get it back to its mother. We have to go to the button factory. Ben didn't want to return the baby to its mother. He wanted to keep it. But he didn't know how to take care of it. I've lived here all my life, and suddenly we have dragons in Buttonville. This is amazing. Pearl looked over her shoulder. Better put the lid back on so no one else sees it. Ben did, and just in time, because a woman with hair as yellow as Pearl stuck her head out the upstairs window. Pearl, what are you doing? Hi, Mom. I'm talking to my new friend, Ben. Mrs. Petal smiled. She had a big gap between her front teeth, too. Hello, Ben. You must be Abe's grandson. We've heard a lot about you. Hello, Ben said. I'll bet it's exciting to live in Los Angeles. This town must seem very boring to you. Ben shrugged. Well, Mom, can I go for a walk with Ben? Mrs. Petal pursed her lips and thought for a moment. I guess so, but you still have chores, so be back before we close. Okay, Pearl answered. She yanked the napkin out of her collar and tossed it into the dollar store. Then she grabbed Ben's arm and pulled him down the sidewalk. Don't get into trouble, Mrs. Petal called. Please don't get into trouble. I won't, Pearl called back. Then she grumbled. Everyone always thinks I'm going to get into trouble. The scent of French fries and grilled burgers drifted out the door of the Buttonville diner as the kids passed by. Maybe the dragon fell out of the big dragon's nest, Pearl said as they hurried down Main Street. Then your grandpa's cat found it. Maybe, Ben said, though the baby seemed very small to have come from the humongous creature that had flown between the clouds. Pearl led the way, turning onto First Street. Her shiny red basketball shorts swished with her hurried steps. They cut through a church parking lot and darted around the back of an abandoned gas station. Pearl's stride was longer than Ben's, her steps faster. He had to jog to keep up. If the nest is on the button factory roof like I think it is, then we'll have to climb up so we can give the baby dragon back, Pearl said as they crossed over to Maple Street. Ben stopped walking. There were many things he dreamed of doing. Getting past level 36 in Galaxy games was one of those things. Learning how to ride a skateboard was another one of those things. But facing an enormous mother dragon? Not one of those things. The wall of flame the mother dragon could shoot from her snout would be 1,000,000 times bigger than the one that had come out of her baby. Pearl, I don't think we should climb to the roof. I have a better idea. A better idea? She skidded to a stop. I'm listening. He told her about the red-haired man who worked at the button factory. That's impossible, she said, pushing blonde wisps from her face. No one works at the button factory. It closed years ago. The man had a recipe in his pocket for artificial dragon's milk, and he bought the stuff to make it. Ben expected Pearl to laugh. He expected her to give him a playful shove and say something like, "No way, that's crazy." But she didn't. She twirled a lock of her hair, her eyes glazing over as she went into a deep thinking place. Pearl, did you hear what I said? Dragon's milk, she mumbled. Then he must know about the big dragon. She suddenly spun around. Woo-hoo, she cried. A squirrel that had been sitting on a garbage can skittered away. Woo-hoo, Pearl spun again. This is amazing. Isn't this amazing? Don't you think this is amazing? Ben broke into a huge grin. Yes, it is amazing. But the mood was broken by a sickly sound, something between a squeak and a cough that came from inside the tin. Ben opened the lid, and he and Pearl peered inside. A little green stain had spread across the paper towels. Do you think that green stuff is blood? Pearl asked. Maybe, Ben said. The stupid cat must have stabbed the dragon with one of his sharp teeth. We better hurry. That's the end of chapter 7, and I'll also try to send you chapter 8, okay? Love you guys.